the flavor. I'm through like 3.
Oh, right. Okay, sure, yeah.
And I'll read the whole thing because it's good.
Well, yeah, the plan is we'll do the second half for next week.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. How about you, Corey?
I'm good. This is actually my third time reading this book, so
Oh.
I'm a huge fan.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, since I myself had already read it before, so that's why I chose it. Um, um,
It's a
I
perfect
think
time to read it. It's her birthday yesterday, right?
the what?
I think it's her. It's Alison Bechdell's birthday yesterday. So
Was it?
I think I saw a post somewhere, and I thought this is perfect timing.
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, let's say that was my plan. Great. Yeah. All right. So in celebration, we'll consider this a memorial, I suppose. No, I think this is a great comic. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's one I recommend to everybody. I think everybody should read this. It's got a lot of depth, got a lot of richness to it.
Yeah, it's kind of understated in certain ways that I really like.
Yeah, let's just go right ahead and see what we can see here. All right, let's with I think I did that. 25, 150. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for this. I went through, I mean, I read it like years ago, but yeah, it's very, such a rich, compelling journey of her life. Three things that I floated through my head about what I wanted to talk about, I guess. It's not told linearly. It's told, modally. There's a different, much like memory. It's just facets of the whole are revealed bit by bit, not in a particularly linear fashion. It's more of a kaleidoscopic effect.
I got the feeling that she pulled the scenes out of a very exact storehouse in a way, because they just seemed really genuine to me. Like the way they captured little, certain aspects. It seemed like she had filed them in a way to me.
Okay.
Like impressions that were very indelible for her.
Yeah. I mean, it's very evocative, the way she kind of puts you in the mindset. I mean, it really does evoke, well, for me anyway, it evokes a lot of memories of childhood, what it was like to be a child and to grow up with your family, with your parents. And yeah, it's a very, very nice portrait of how she managed to display those emotions. That childhood is such a weird time, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, even when you think back on it, it's like just some otherworldly thing, which I think is kind of sort of similar to what they were trying to get across in things like, Alice in Wonderland, or even like The Wizard of Oz. It's kind of like a dream when you think back of it like that. At least it is for me. I don't know about anyone else, but for me, it's like, yeah, it's just some other world, like, yeah, some other dream half remembered. I don't know.
You know what it caught for me too was when you're a kid, you don't know any comparison. I mean, you don't have any comparison between your home life really and anybody else's. So its peculiarities are not peculiar really. They're just your
yeah.
how it is. And when you're looking at her life, you see how peculiar parts of it were. But they must have been for her at all. Like all that restoration of the house, and that the kids were, the furniture were his children.
Mm-hmm.
His children were furniture.
Yeah, it's tempting to suggest in retrospect that her family was a sham, that our house was not a real home at all, but the simulacrum of one, a museum. Yeah. Yeah, Corey, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was just thinking one of the reasons why I love this book so much is that I think Bechdel has this ability to, translate this particular experience into something universal, something that because I don't think I have anything remotely similar to her experience. But for some reason, I definitely see a reflection of my own father-daughter relationship in her story, and I think that's why this is a powerful, and having the illustrations alongside the verbal narrative definitely helps, bring out some of the themes and issues that really spoke to me in a personal way.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. And this is exactly why I think the comics medium is so powerful when it's done correctly. And Bechdel is certainly a very, very fine cartoonist. Yeah, her cartooning is just great. I think she wields the medium very, very well. Yeah, the right balance of text and art, to the effect that if you divorce one from the other, it wouldn't be the same. It's the dynamic of the two, which is the best cartooning. Yeah.
A lot of cartoonists don't do all of the drawing, right?
It depends. Yeah.
Like in Maggie the Mechanic, was it drawn and written by the same person?
That one, yeah, that was Jaime Hernandez. Yeah, that was, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on which, case by case, but a lot of them do. You start with the pencil layouts, and then there's ink, and then letter and color if necessary. And you could theoretically get, other hands to do any one of those parts, and a lot of them do. But so it depends on, case by case basis. In Jaime Hernandez's case, I believe he does all of it. I believe Alison Bechdel does all of it as well. But a lot of them do have assistants, depending on who it is. But in this case, yeah, they do all of it, which is rather impressive, I think. And I like the art. I like Bechdel's style. I certainly do. It's I think it has the right balance. It's not as slick. It's not as cleanly polished. But I kind of like that. It has kind of like a down to earth feel. It has kind of like a, I liken it to like a. It's like a CD of an indie indie singer songwriter. Just a simple singer in front of a microphone with a guitar and nothing else, just totally stripped down. You know, she might be in a high-tech recording studio, but you know, the authenticity is still there, right?
Right.
So I kind of like that.
That's weird that in the frame that can you go back up to the top frame?
This one?
That she throws in that he appeared to be an ideal husband and father, for example, but would an ideal husband and father have sex with teenage boys?
Yeah.
That's like a very direct. She throws in a really direct moment right there and then kind of backs off into other things, you know, doesn't follow that up right away.
Right. Yeah, as I said, like just revealing facets of the gem, you know, one by one as they come up. That's a very it's tough to do that correctly, because you can get it wrong and it just strikes the wrong tone, and it's too jarring for the reader. But you know, I think she pulls it off, actually. You know, don't reveal too much, but just let little glimmers of it come through bit by bit. It's pretty masterful, actually, I think. There's so much in here. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the sociology of the times and the whole experience. I mean, we're talking about the the psychological impact here. What's going on? You know, certainly, of course, directly the sexual development of her parents, her father and her mother, and as well as herself, and the family dynamics. Yeah, there's a lot to mine here. Actually, we could actually have a good discussion about all this. You know, what it was like to live then in that time and place at the time, where no, it was just out of the question. You could not actually just, you know, come right out with this. It just wasn't going to be accepted by the society that they were in at the time. So really, Bruce Bechdel, he had no option. I mean, there was no alternative for him. You know, you were in that time and place. You were going to get married. You were going to have a job. You were going to be conventional, and there was no alternative. I mean, he didn't have any options. You know, and what it's like to be stuck in that situation, in a civilization, in a society like that, where you couldn't get out. And that, of course, caused, you know, really a lot of turmoil inside his psyche, inside his psychosexual development, that was just bubbling and boiling and churning within him, and really just destroyed his life. I mean, he was horribly depressed, obviously. I mean, he just could not express his true sexuality, and he could not embrace his, you know, his true nature, and just pretty much, yeah, ultimately it killed him. It's ultimately a really tragic story, but you know, it's an indictment of really, you know, the society, the social mores that they were in at the time. So it's a portrait of, you know, how do you manage, how do you cope if you find yourself in that situation? You know, how much does our society impose on us? How much does our society impose our way of being? How much does it limit us? You know, how much can we get out of it? You know, I mean, we think, hey, we think we're in a better situation. You know, I mean, whenever you start talking like this, you say, well, it's so much better today now, isn't it? Well, is it? Okay, admittedly, in a few ways it is. But you know what? I see a lot of ways we're just as limited, you know, probably in ways we're not even conscious of. You know, I mean, I'm telling you, 75 years, I always say this, 75 years, 90 years from today, people will look back at today, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and they will say exactly the same thing. I guarantee you. They'll say, my God, how could those people have lived with such restrictions? Don't you know what I'm talking about? You know,
Sure.
they would look back and think we're provincial, you know, small-minded, and we are.
Mm-hmm. It's great how they call the funeral home fun home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a play on words there going. Yeah. fun short for funeral, but the fun, yeah, being, yeah. And that's, of course, very ironic. You know, what could be less fun than a funeral home? And yet, when you're a child, of course, as you see right there, when you're a child, it doesn't make any difference to you. You're a kid. You're gonna have fun no matter what. You're just gonna play. Yeah. And you know, if you've grown up with that being your environment, you know, it's just normal for you. You don't look at it with the sacrality that we adults would. You know, it's just your everyday experience to just be in a place like that. And you know, you have a different relationship to it. You contextualize it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just another playground for you.
Right, right.
So in that sense, it is a fun home. But yeah, and of course, you know, the sense that, you know, their home was not particularly very, very much fun. Yeah, so there's a lot of different plays on that title.
Yeah, but wait, did they live in that funeral home or no?
Well, the way it was the funeral home was the building. I think they lived in the home next door. The fun home was up on Main Street. Their own house was, I think, yeah, like a street away or something like that.
Okay.
But I mean, when the guy, you know, the guy worked. I mean, it was their home. I mean, the guy worked there. I mean, it was obviously it's grandfather's, wasn't it? And he just inherited it, but it was the family business. So, you know, they'd been owning and operating that for a couple of generations, and you know, they'd been at that, you know, their whole lives. Well, the kids anyway. Well, him too, I guess, since yeah, it was his family's.
You know, some of the drawings are really, they look so much like Linda Barry draws.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Better, I think. You know, I mean, you know, as I keep saying, drawing is like music. You either dig it or you don't. I like Bechdel's drawing. I like her style. It's yeah, it's pretty, I think. You know, it's just detailed enough. But she can put some detail in it when she needs to, you know. Yeah, it's there. It's there. It's there when it needs to be.
I think what I love particularly about her drawing is how much attention she pays to details, like even minor ones that like people don't really pay attention to, especially like in the background, you know, whenever she depicts the family house, like the Victorian style interior. And also like when she, I think there are a lot of like reproductions of like letters, dictionary pages and stuff like that. And I think there's a sense of authenticity that she puts into those, in those panels.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially that cadaver right there.
Oh, right. I always think good cartooning is a melding of content to form. You know, it wouldn't be right, you know, to have a good example would be like if you know Jules Pfeiffer's comics. If you know Jules Pfeiffer's comics,
yeah, sure.
Try and imagine a Jules Pfeiffer comic drawn like the X-Men. Wouldn't work at all. You don't want that kind of hyper realistic, you know, where you can see, you know, the stubble on their beard. You know, you don't want to. That's just it's not going to work. You know, that's the wrong marriage of content and form. You know, the psychological tone would be off. You know, this is a very introspective piece. You know, it's a biography. It's an autobiography. We're talking about a a journey through, well, her life, as well as her father's life and her parents' life. So for that, you would want a more subdued approach, and I like the choice of the one color of blue. We're just going to have it be very, very introspective and very, very contemplative.
Mm-hmm.
Very moody, and I think very, very sparse. It's a bit like a dream. Yeah, I would say that. And the specific emotions we're playing with here, a lot of the theme that she keeps coming back to again and again is the lack of emotion, which of course, she's saying that she picked it up from her parents, but it was the case that of their family as a whole, that emotion was sort of tamped down. And you can totally see the psychological dimensions that are going on here, because both of the two parents had to, out of necessity, tamp down their emotions. And that just naturally bled through and set the tenor for the entire experience of their family, to the point where now she's later in her adulthood having to deal with the ramifications of that, not having a huge amount of the normal range, the normal scope of human emotion, and the damage that clearly has done to her development.
Does her mother become more present later, or that she just stays that far out of everything?
Oh, in the chapters to come, there's a lot of covering both her parents, her mother and father. Yeah, there's a lot more coming in the chapters to come.
Really?
Oh yeah.
This
is such a great book.
I do feel like she still feels more on the peripheral of the story. Oh, well, definitely so in comparison to how much is told about Bruce, the father.
Oh, clearly, this is a book about Bruce Bechdel. Mm-hmm. This is definitely Bruce's story, mm-hmm. as well as her own. Yeah, the sequel is where she goes in depth, mm-hmm. with Helen Bechdel, which I wasn't planning on covering, but we'll see when we get through next week. This is such a great book. There's so much to cover here. I mean, it's so psychologically rich, because you've got certainly Bruce's story of how to live as a closeted gay man in a time and place where that just absolutely could not be accepted at all, and what that would do to you. Did you say you got to chapter 3, or you're finished, or?
No, I didn't finish. I just got to it.
Oh, okay. So you would be right around here ish.
Yep.
Yeah. So at this point in the story, Alison is coming to her own realization and revelation, tentatively coming out first to her parents, deciding to lay her claim and fully embrace her sexuality, and and finds herself somehow stood up, what do you call it, upstaged by her father committing suicide right then.
Wait, how old is she when he commits suicide?
Well, she says she's in the middle of college, so
about 20.
Yeah, must be. She must be 21-ish. Yeah, mm-hmm. At this point. Now, there. Yeah. I kind of like this. For anyone but the landed gentry to refer to a room in their house as the library might seem affected, but there really was no other word for it. And if my father liked to imagine himself as a 19th century aristocrat, overseeing his estate from behind the leather-topped mahogany and brass Second Empire desk, did that require such a leap of the imagination? Perhaps affectation can be so thoroughgoing, so authentic in its details, that it stops being pretense and becomes, for all practical purposes, real. Yeah, I actually like that, because that actually is something that has passed through my head a lot, and not in relation to this, but in relation to other things. Yeah, when does pretense stop being pretense? Or what pretense actually is. Uh, uh, yeah, there's something to that, I think. I've always wondered why people, I mean, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't get it. I always wondered why people think of pretense as being an insult. Why it's, what's wrong with pretense? You know? I mean, people say that's pretentious, as a put down, as an insult. I kind of do get it, but I always wonder, why? What's wrong? What's wrong with being pretentious? What's wrong with that? I'm the kind of guy who's always been pretentious his whole life. So to me, the way I think of it is, pretense is trying to grasp something that's outside your grasp. You're not really there, but you're grasping towards it anyway. Okay, well, what's wrong with that? That's how you grow. Yeah?
Good question. Yeah.
That's how you grow. That's how you get better. That's how you learn. What's wrong with that? Why is pretentious an insult? That's something you should want to grow. You should want to get better.
I wonder if it's because it's often said as if as if there's an imitation.
Ah, okay.
Rather than your own, whatever authenticity is, whatever that is. But
yeah, I think there are some, well, like the ancient Greeks called it the agon, the struggle, the effort. It's the discomfort to just be what you are. You have this restless soul. You want to improve. You have a thirst for betterment. That kind of thinking is completely old fashioned now. That kind of thinking is completely out of fashion. We don't think like that anymore. But there used to be cultures that thought like that. And to our detriment, I think. Because hey, well, okay, yeah. That, yes, honestly, that leads to, well, I'll leave it there.
I think it got me thinking about how, and I think it applies to other issues as well, just how much people focus on the effect of something rather than the cause of it. People pay attention to how, like, I guess when it comes to criticism or like critique of pretense, it's just people are concerned with the fact that they're not being genuine. And I think there are certain, or even a sense of deception lying behind that. But I think people seldom really dig deeper into the root cause of such, or asking questions about why such pretense is a necessity for certain people. And I guess that's the larger issue here.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of rich psychological soil to be turned over on that. But I do love the, I mean, clearly this is such a literate way of life. You know, I mean, all of these people, all of them, you know, were clearly just so deep into, you know, what used to be called the life of the mind. You know, they all read. They're all readers. They all respect the classics, the classic literature, and understand the purpose of the humanities in a way that, you know, again, is just completely out of fashion today. That's almost completely gone now from our everyday experience, again, to our detriment. But understanding that, you know, why these great classic novels and great literature were important, it's not even questioned, which I just think is lovely. And it certainly does inform her. It informs her writing style. I mean, I'm not just talking about her sentences. I mean, you know, the way she constructs her material, the way she constructs the modules of the chapters and the scenes. I think it's very masterful. I think it's you know, she constructs scenes and setups very well as dialogue, and yeah, just the richness of her prose, the richness of her vocabulary. It certainly does shine through.
Can you go back a little, about 3 or 4 pages?
Yeah, sure.
No, never mind.
More up.
Yeah, maybe so. That's good. That's fine. I just wanted to see something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can tell, you know, Bruce Bechdel obviously had a very particular, you know, sense of aesthetics, but that was, you know, in effect, I mean, you know, I mean, that was his essence, his nature, you know, his you know, spiritus mundi coming out. That was his, you know, his expression.
And he was really into playing house.
Yeah.
So much. Everything in that house, you can see he fully enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was a huge theme here in this book with yeah, putting on the show, putting on the disguise, putting on the mask, putting on the illusion. You know, in his case, you know, I mean, he had to pass in society, you know, his whole life. And yeah, that's going to screw up anybody if you have to do that, you know, where you can't properly express who you are to the society at large. That's going to cause, you know, a lot of damage to anybody. But
hey, I have to go. But
yeah,
thank you very much.
All right, Anya. Yeah, so let's do the rest of the book for next week.
Sure.
I know you're going to enjoy this, and we'll have more to talk about.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing, Anya. Catch you next week.
Good night, Corey.
Sure.
Good night.
Bye. Okay. Yeah, so we've got to just about where Anya left off, Corey, when she was reading. She hadn't read this before. Yeah, I've read this before, and you have as well.
Yep.
Have you read? You've read the sequel, right?
Yes, I actually just finished it last week.
Yeah, the one about Helen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see it next week. We'll talk about it, and we'll see if we want to continue.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just think this is such a great book, and I do recommend everybody read it. I think I would say it's one of the best comics done in the last 15 years. I would say, in the sense that everybody should read it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on this.
Have you seen the musical?
Yes, I did actually.
Oh, cool.
I got a chance to watch it for free online, so that was wonderful.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to go through this again.
I think it's just interesting to see, like, this is my third time reading it, but like each time I find new layers of meaning or specificities in the text, and I think, like, I don't know, it just keeps surprising me, and I just always go back to it.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, there's so much to it. I mean, I think one of the things, of course, obviously, is just so clearly, obviously out there. It's a story of sexuality. And everybody's, experience of becoming introduced to the sexual dimension of the human experience. It's such a fascinating story. I think it would be fascinating to hear anybody's story of that. It's such a personal story. It's such a no two stories are the same, and yet they're all the same. It's just, here in this chapter, she's just, having this, feverish exploration through the books and scholarly books she has to go through to get a handle on what's going on with herself.
I think there's definitely a connection between drawing or other forms of artistic expression and her discovery of her gender and sexuality.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that they both had to come out. They're both expressions. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So we're going to talk about the second half of the book next week, right?
Yeah, because it's long and people are short on time. So this is a long book, so I figured we'll do up to chapter 4 and then do the last half next week. Yeah, because I've already read this, but yeah, such a great book.
Okay. So I guess I'll see you next Friday, same time, or
I'll put it on the calendar. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. All
cool.
right, Corey. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this, and have a good day.
Okay, sure. Bye.
Bye-bye.